The Protestant church didn't even stay one church for 2 days. The moment Sola Scriptura was introduced, it introduces 2 to 3 denominations instantly.
For centuries, the lines were drawn. Welcome to the Protestant Paradox on the Mystical Convert channel.
Welcome to the Protestant Paradox. Imagine this, you are in court for parking at the wrong place. And instead of stating your case in front of a judge, you are given a law book and given the instruction to interpret the law book for yourself. Now, what kind of a catastrophe do you think that will cause, Benedict?
Cause a large catastrophe, especially since it would be completely lawless at that point, cause you could just come up with anything you want.
For a law to exist, it requires an enforcement. That's why there are police, because a law without people enforcing the law is just a wall of text.
If the reformers had just the law, and these police officers were supposed to uphold the law and prevent people from breaking it, on the road you see signs stating, "Do not go over this speed limit." If you were to remove the police officers, would you expect people to obey the signs, Patrick?
No, because there is no one enforcing the law. And let's say the speed limit sign is in a specific corner, I can twist it to a point where, hey, I'm not turning into that junction. Does that mean that the speed limit does not apply to me because technically I can't see it? You can see how much damage it will cause to a city if there is no law enforcement.
It would cause pain and suffering throughout all the people because you would have to watch your back and make sure a car's not going to hit into you.
Now imagine this, you are just going to buy groceries and you need to hope and pray that no one robs the grocery store. Because if a store robbery does happen, who is there to protect the store? Who is there to bring the robbers into justice? Absolutely nobody.
That is exactly why we need the Constitution.
Now, Benedict, do you agree with me that the Constitution, the law of the United States, if there is no final judgment, if there is no Supreme Court, no one will listen to the law of the United States?
If there is no order, of course no one's gonna listen.
If you break the rules, who is going to bring you to justice? Are you going to willingly walk to a jail cell? I don't think so. Without the judge, without the Supreme Court for high-profile cases, no one in their right state of mind would willingly walk to a jail cell. Now, unless we are a moral person, unless we are following the teachings of the Bible.
Patrick, let's say today the Supreme Court decided to instill a law that states that the people interpret the law in any way they want. Think of the anarchy it would be.
Yes, it will be absolute chaos, and here's why. The moment that happens, a lot of the businesses that is trying to make a profit will interpret the tax code law to their own interpretation so that they won't have to pay tax. They will figure something out. They'll hire people to read in between the lines. Who is going to correct them? There is no Supreme Court. That is what Martin Luther tried with Sola Scriptura. When you abolish the Supreme Court, in our case, which is the papacy, which is the interpreter of Scripture, because Christ is no longer in the physical world, like we can no longer touch him. He's always with us, but we cannot touch him to a point where like we can shake hands with the Pope, right? So he instituted the Pope for us, for the Pope to interpret Scripture for us and to not lead his church into heresy. The first 2 or 3 months of the law being in effect, many states will have different opinions about big issues because there is no Supreme Court anymore. So every state will have their own laws, their own rules, and some of them will break away from the United States, forming their own countries. Do you see the correlation there? This is exactly what the Protestant Reformation caused.
Yes, I can see the big correlation between the Protestant Reformation and this. How everyone just split apart and everyone has different thoughts from one another.
Do you know that it didn't even stay 2 to 3 days a church? It wasn't like it started in one Lutheran church. No. The moment Martin Luther introduced the possibility of Sola Scriptura, not just him alone, but countless reformers came up together with Martin Luther to develop their own denominations. So it didn't even stay, the Protestant church didn't even stay one church for 2 days. The moment Sola Scriptura was introduced, it introduces 2 to 3 denominations instantly. So instantly, you can see the flaw within Sola Scriptura.
Now let's think about what Patrick has stated. If you were to grant every single believer individual interpretation right, you would essentially give everyone a political veto. Correct, Patrick?
Yes, that's right, because one guy will come out, hey, I think salvation is through faith alone. And then the other one will come out, hey, no, I think it is through cooperating with the grace of God by doing good works. And then they will fight, they will have debates. But then there will be no central authority to go to because they have already abolished it.
If you really think about it, right? If you think about the government where every single citizen has the veto over the Supreme Court, it makes the centralized church authority literally impossible to maintain. Because at the end of the day, the individual's perspective actually overrides the papacy, or it overrides the institution.
That's right. In a city where you self-interpret the constitution, it will no longer be a peaceful city. It will be a city full of wars, full of robberies, full of people doing immoral things, and there won't be any consequences. And I think that when we abolish a central authority, it is very dangerous within the church and also outside of the church. So in this series, we focus on not using scriptures or the church writings from the early church fathers like most people do, but we focus on using logical points, scenarios to state what the Protestant Reformation has caused. Even when we use logic, we can see how the Protestants is flawed. It is built on a system that cannot last as long as a Catholic Church. If you think about it, the Catholic Church has been around for 2,000 years. How long has Pentecostal Church been around?
Barely a fraction of that, Patrick.
How long has the Calvary Chapel been around, right? It is easy to see.
I mean, yeah, everyone states, oh, I have a degree from Calvary Chapel, I'm immediately better than you, right, Patrick?
Right, because they think that. But as Protestants, you really don't have the right to think that, and here's why. Because there is no qualification required to be a pastor. Do you agree with me? It depends
Especially
on the
in
individual
modern-
church. It is not a universal qualification list required like becoming a priest. I hope you guys enjoy watching today's video, and if you did, please consider leaving your thoughts down in the comments, leave a like and subscribe.